If you want a small luxury EV, you suddenly have quite a few options, right from the likes of the BMW iX1, the Volvos, and even the Kia EV6. But Mercedes has been absent from this segment, which is why you now have this, the Mercedes-Benz EQA. Now, on the face of it, it looks like an electric version of the GLA, which is exactly what it is. And in this video, we'll tell you exactly how it differs from the GLA and what it really is like. With the EQA, while most of the sheet metal is shared with the GLA, you have a fairly differentiated, smart-looking front with the full-width lighting, the slightly reworked headlamps with the blue highlighting and a blanked-out grille. The star pattern here is well executed and adds a subtle touch of presence to what is otherwise quite a compact car. The added chrome and the softer new bumper also go with this theme. The EQA looks most similar to the GLA in profile, but you will notice the large 19-inch aero-efficient wheels. These are again eye-catching despite being heavily cladded. These changes are functional too, allowing for a drag coefficient of 0.28 from the GLA's 0.30. The rear is where it most differs from the GLA. The boot lid is new with the slimmer full-width tail lamps, and the number plate shifting to the new bumper also makes for a sleeker look than the ICE versions. However, the EV packaging has dropped boot space to 340 litres from the GLA's 425, so you will need to pack more consciously on family trips. Now, like with the GLA, the EQA's small footprint, its sort of compact dimensions make it a great city car. The steering is also quite light. You can place the car well on the road. And then of course, an EV drivetrain sort of goes with that whole city driving purpose well. So again, in that respect, it's obviously taken a step forward. You have broadly similar outputs, 190 PS and 385 Nm as say the diesel GLA 220D. So yeah, performance is similar, but of course, I must say that unlike some of its competitors, the EQA sort of gives you that sharp acceleration off the line, especially in the comfort and sport modes. So yeah, that is something if you aren't used to EVs, you will have to take notice of. But the Eco mode in that sense for us worked better in traffic, where it's calmer, it's got a slightly softer throttle response. So it just makes living with this car a bit easier. At higher speeds, you find that performance evens out. The EQA's motions become smoother, and while you do notice a slight dip in performance past 80 kmph, the Mercedes is still quite comfortable doing highway speeds. The 0 to 100 kmph time of 8.6 seconds is again quick enough for most needs, although there are more powerful rivals, while the 160 kmph top speed is good enough too. Now this is an EV, and another thing to take note of is how the regen works, and it's that typically quite smart Mercedes system. So you don't have full one pedal driving, but you have normal, strong and maximum regen. And in the maximum regen mode, you can see that there is quite a strong braking performance. But for us, the strong recuperation worked the best. It feels the most natural. Now you get that intelligent recuperation function, which usually works well. We've seen that in the EQS. It uses the cameras and a few other sensors to sort of predict what the car or what your surroundings are going to do and then maximize regen accordingly. And we've noticed that it actually does work. Just like in the EQS, it does give you good range. And yeah, in really tough traffic, it can sometimes get caught out, but otherwise, say on an open road like we are right now, it really is quite natural. This ties in well with one of the Mercedes EQA's biggest highlights. Its 560 km of WLTP range from its 70.5 kWh battery pack is one of the highest in its segment. And like we've seen with other Mercedes EVs, it does do a great job of maximizing efficiency. You can expect to see a real-world range of about 450 km without much trouble, so longer trips are doable. Charging speeds are good too, if not class leading. The EQA can DC fast charge at up to 100 kW, and charging at home via an AC wall box at 11 kW will take 7 hours 15 minutes to fully top up the battery. When you are on an open road, you will notice that the EQA feels flat, composed, like how most Mercedes cars do. But with these 19-inch wheels, and of course it's carrying a different suspension tune considering it's much heavier, over 2 tons than the GLA. So you do notice that firmness when you hit sort of rough patches where the car is sort of moved around a little bit. It sort of thuds through bumps and sort of ditches. in that regard, it's not very comfortable. You do get thrown around in the cabin a bit, and maybe some of its rivals do this better of managing an EV's weight and still keeping a pliant ride. But this suspension tune does give the EQA an agile, darty feel around corners. Yes, the low-centered mass of an EV helps to minimize roll, but the EQA does a good job of managing its mass in these conditions. This also helps control some of the nose-heavy tendencies of its front-wheel drive layout and brings it closer to the balance that some of its rear-driven rivals provide. So as you can see, the interiors, they're pretty much identical to what you find in the GLA, but of course there are some minor differences. So what you see is that the overall design, it has that contemporary high quality Mercedes feel to it, especially in the way that this pattern sort of lights up at night with the ambient lighting, and of course these very hefty vents and these nice toggle switches, considering this is a slightly older sort of Mercedes model. But you also do notice that, yeah, this new steering wheel, maybe the buttons these touch panel buttons could have been a bit easier to use, and of course in the lower reaches maybe the plastic could have been of a slightly better quality. But you have soft materials of the kind you expect in a Mercedes on most touch surfaces and the door panels, and some highly adjustable seats which offer a good degree of support. Cabin practicality hasn't taken a hit, so you have that new, more open central tunnel design from the GLA and the deep door pockets. There are many charge ports here and wireless charging, which also means that keeping your devices powered up will not be a problem. Coming to what is actually different, you do notice that you have these sort of rose gold inserts. Now it really does add to the sense. It's a small touch, but it does amp up the feeling of luxury and separates the EQA from the GLA. And in keeping with that theme, you notice this upholstery. Now it's, of course, it's part leather and part sort of fabric, but again it has this really nice textured feel to it. It's made from recycled PET bottles, so it really does feel quite high quality. You also have new graphics for the two 10.25-inch screens. The driver's display gives you a good degree of EV-specific information, which is presented crisply. It's the same with the touchscreen. We miss the touchpad, but the responses are crisp, and again some features like the one that lets you maximize range and plan trips keeping range in mind are thoughtful touches. As always, the wireless Android Auto Apple CarPlay function is an especially useful one. Now all of this is largely similar to what the GLA is, but where Mercedes is differentiating the EQA and sort of positioning it a bit higher is in the features list. Now of course you get everything that the GLA gets, but there are some really quite noteworthy feature additions. Now the most notable of which are a head-up display, a full color one like you find in something like a GLE or even a GLS that's here in this car. You get a 360-degree camera, and you get navigation with augmented reality, which is a pretty useful touch actually, I must say. And finally, another sort of neat touch which many will admire is the Bumister audio system 12-speaker setup. Other notable features include connected car tech, dual zone climate control, a dual pane panoramic sunroof, powered front seats, and a self-parking feature. Safety features include 7 airbags, active emergency braking, blind spot monitoring, and auto high beam. Now you see that in terms of legroom and headroom, this is not very different from the GLA. So yeah, I don't have a lot of headroom, especially with this panoramic roof sort of eating into space. So if someone taller than me, they might have it a bit difficult, but the scoop does help me a little bit. And in terms of legroom, it's okay. It's not the biggest in the segment, but it does the job for most needs. Now where you do notice a big difference is in the underthigh support. Now the seats, the shape hasn't really changed all that much, but because of the battery pack, this quite large battery pack, the floor is notably higher than in the GLA. So you notice that, yeah, as you can see, there's a lot of gap here, so not very comfortable. But in terms of the backrest, of course, it's typically Mercedes. You have a really nice firm cushion. Now in terms of amenities, you have this very intricate cup holder. It's a very Mercedes thing to do, right? So you have these, you have rear AC vents, a small pocket here, and 2 USB-C ports. The Mercedes-Benz EQA should be priced at around Rs 60 to 65 lakh for the single EQA 250 Plus variant that will be available. Yes, rear passengers will have to contend with slightly awkward seating, and we think the firm ride puts the EQA at a disadvantage to its rivals. But many will be drawn to the impressive range and the typically special Mercedes feeling that you get in the cabin with the ambience and features.